a little bit about all the features that are available in Studio, and then get into Q&A. So just as an overview of IMO Studio, what it is our new cloud-based platform. And it now has tools that's going to let you compare and customize IMO's terminology releases. What we're also supporting now in Studio is the ability to retrieve SNOMED files accompanying each IMO release. And you'll be able to see that with the live demo that Justin is providing today. And then what we're introducing with Studio as well is a secure and user-friendly login experience. For anyone that has had interactions with our old download portal, you may remember that it was always consisted of organization-specific credentials to get logged in. Now logging into IMO Studio is based on your own email and password. So, getting started with Studio. What we did here at IMO is for anyone that has interacted with our terminology releases in the past, whether that's getting our notifications each time a release is available, or even just downloading content from IMO, what we did our best is to identify you and give you access to Studio already, and give you the permissions to download the appropriate licensable products that you are able to download from IMO. So if you haven't already, and you've already been given access to Studio, what you can do to sign in for the first time is go to the login page of Studio, click sign in, press forgot password, and enter your email to reset your password. Once you reset your password, you will get in an email a link to reset it, and once you reset it, you'll be able to successfully log in. For brand new IMO users, so if you do not yet have an IMO Studio account, you will have to create an account. So from that same homepage, click on Create Account. And what we're going to do is prompt you to fill out this form. This form will let you create your own password, and then that will get submitted to the customer support team. After you create an account, you will receive an email to confirm your account. What we ask is that you just give the customer support team during business hours about 10 minutes to review your contact information, review what you should be seeing in IMO Studio so that we can grant that appropriate access. And then we will send you another email confirming that you're good to go and you can log in. Once you are logged into IMO Studio, you are going to see some different components here on the left side. You will see lock icons next to specific solutions that your organization is not licensed for yet. You can click into those specific solutions if you want to find out just general information about them. Always feel free to also contact your client executive if you have any questions about things you're seeing in Studio. But for today's focus and the focus of tomorrow's regulatory release, you are going to want to hone in on this content management section. This is where you will see the release available to download, and also where you can use our compare releases tool. And with that, I am going to kick it over to Justin.
All right. Well, thank you, Josephine, and hello, everyone. I'm Justin Lobb, product manager here at IMO. I want to thank everyone so much for joining us today to learn more about all the great capabilities that are going to be available to you with IMO Studio, especially with this regulatory release coming out tomorrow. What I'm going to be covering today is an in-depth view of the new functionality available in IMO Studio, particularly in that compare releases section that Josephine just mentioned. What you see today for some of you might be familiar and look like either Release Manager or Content Management Portal. But what we're calling it now is Compare Releases. We've lifted that functionality up into IMO Studio and into a much broader audience to bring a lot more value to a lot of our customers. So before we actually get in the tool, I do just kind of want to set the table and give some detail on what compare releases is and what the value could be for you and your organization. So if we look at still in an IMO Studio perspective, what a content or IMO content update process might look like. So we're looking at the load process, that big 4 to 6 weeks number there, and all these various steps involved, pulling the SNOMED file, various spreadsheets from IMO, a lot of manual review to track down and figure out the relevant changes between their last IMO release you took and the one you're preparing to import in. Utilities running, we're calling out specifically the use count file here. Big one here, and this is especially important with what compare releases can do for you, is this manually identifying replacements. So we'll dive into what could be a lot of work without using compare releases to identify those replacements, and what compare releases can do for you to simplify that. And then those last couple of steps as far as running all the necessary utilities and then migrating that new content load up to prod. So if we jump to the next slide, we'll see what the process could look like with compare releases involved. You still have that SNOMED step, the use count file, but under that compare releases section in the slide here, the tool can just immediately parse out any of those relevant changes or differences between the old and new release. There's a use count file we'll look into as to how that is valuable and contextualizing and effectively prioritizing your work within compare releases, and showing the impact of the new release if you were not to take any action, and how that would look downstream. Another big value add with the tool and what IMO does for you is these recommended replacements that are available only within this tool, to simplify the work, kind of speed up any searching for replacements you might otherwise have to do. And the final piece with compare releases is actually allowing you to build a customized IMO flat file package with all those custom replacements that you've done, just kind of feathered in to that IMO release package, that you can then seamlessly kind of load in and go through that import process. And if you look at how much time we're looking to save you with using this process, you see that 2 to 5 weeks time savings. That's not a one size fits all. Every organization is going to be different, but that's our goal here, is just to save you that much time with the functionality we're going to look at. All right, so with that said, I'll go ahead and steal the screen share and jump into Studio. And if you can see my screen,
Yep.
you can see thank you. I am in IMO Studio, and as Josephine mentioned earlier, we're focusing on the content management section, and of course for me, the compare releases section. So this is kind of the setup page for this tool. The first thing I want to dive into here is the use count file that I mentioned. Right here might be the first thing you do, is actually click in and upload a use count file here. You see right here, I already have, so it's just telling me how old my use count file is that I currently have loaded. This will be important in the future if you've loaded one and in a future release you see how old that file is. You don't want to use stale data, so you might want to pull a new file and upload it. But to really get into what the use count file is, just in the simplest form of explaining, it's just a 2-column file. It's going to have IMO term ID, and then it's going to have the use count. So the number of times that term ID or that term was used in your Epic system over a given period of time. And that's going to be important in really kind of showing you the impact of the changes with taking the new release. There are also a lot of specifics to how the file needs to look and just the specs of the file in order for it to work correctly within our system. And I want to quickly jump out to show you where you can see all those specifics. If we click in the lower right-hand corner here in Studio and our resource center, you'll see our support documents section. So we jump into here and there's a compare releases FAQ. So if we open that really quick, I can show you exactly where you can see all those use count file specs. So starting with the second question here and on down about the next 5 questions here are really going to cover everything you're going to want to know about that use count file before you load it. So like what the column headers need to be, what the max file size can be, really get into real specifics about, one tab between columns, all that stuff, the file type, all of that stuff is in here. One thing to really point out here though is your Epic TS should be able to help you pull this file. So that's another big thing to take note of, but definitely suggest jumping into this document, taking a look just to familiarize yourself with all the specifications here. So with that said about the use count file, let's talk about kind of the rest of the setup page here. So we're really just faced with 2 dropdowns. You're going to want to select the current version of IMO that you're on, so the last release that you loaded, and the one you're preparing to upgrade. The other big thing to note here is what you see in these dropdowns is going to be according to what your organization is licensed for. So I just have the standard content licensed for my user here, but if you have dental content you're licensed for, DSM content, anything like that should show up in these dropdowns so you can select and do the compare releases workflow against those releases. So definitely if you are in here and you think you're not seeing everything you should, definitely let us know so we can remedy that for you. But all right, so for the sake of the demo, I will go ahead and say that I last loaded IMO content with the regulatory release of last year, so September 2022. I do not yet have this year's regulatory release available, coming out tomorrow, so I'll just select June 2023. And from here, I'm just going to click Load Differences. And if you have just uploaded a new use count file, this is just going to give you a fair warning. It's going to take a few extra minutes compared to usually this will take just a couple of seconds to actually load up because I already have loaded a use count file here. But once we get in here, so this is the deprecated descriptions page, and it's exactly what it sounds like. This is going to be a workflow involving all the deprecated descriptions, all the deactivated IMO terms between September 2022 and June 2023. So the workflow is kind of broken up to a handful of different subsets you see across the row here. All is just that. So this is all the deprecated descriptions between those 2 releases. So 2,315 is the total. So regardless of whether a replacement has been designated or not for terms, it's just going to show all of them. This is the entire list of deprecated descriptions between the 2 releases. So that's what that subset's going to look like. The one I want to jump over to really quick to show you some of the value that IMO provides, just face up in this tool, is this IMO replacement section. So these IMO replacements are just that. These are deprecated descriptions that IMO is so confident that they have the proper replacement for that inactive term that they have gone ahead and replaced it for you. All right, so you see we have 621 out of those 2,315 that IMO has already replaced for you. You might want to go ahead and review. If you disagree, you can do that within the tool. So you can see there are a couple of suggestions. There's one other suggestion beyond just the one that we've already replaced for you. If you think this is the correct replacement instead, you can select it. and designate it and move on. The other thing you can do within the workflow here is actually search against the release that you're about to take to find your own replacement. So if you disagree with any suggestion there, you can go in and review and make a change here as well. So we'll go ahead and say this is a more suitable replacement. I want to go ahead and make that change, and we'll go ahead and designate that replacement for that deprecated description. And as you can see, it is no longer in my replacements. Since you've done the work yourself, you've manually changed that, it'll now move into this my replacement section. One thing totally forgot to mention, but extremely valuable, and we just spent all that time talking about the use count file. If you see right here, the use count column, this is what we're talking about with loading that use count file. You can immediately, within any of these subsets, see the use counts associated with each deprecated description. So this is what we're talking about of prioritizing your work according to how many times a term was used over that period of time for the file here. So we see here this was almost used 20,000 times. Probably important to review and make sure you have a suitable replacement for that deprecated description. So with that, as I was mentioning, we can jump over to my replacements. The my replacements section is, again, it's pretty clear. These are all the terms that you have designated as just a replacement for yourself. So you've made the decision of what the replacement is for all of these terms. You'll see the really high count here. It's already at 1691 out of 2,315. You've already applied that many replacements. How that can actually happen, and one of the major features within this tool, first thing to say is IMO provides these suggestions for at least 80% of all the deprecated descriptions between any two releases. So you'll see here a list of a couple suggestions here. Any term with a suggestion associated, I can just click this accept all suggested replacements button. I like to just call it the easy button, because I mean, this is really just going to, basically, you click yes and accept, it's automatically going to designate the IMO suggestion as the replacement for any term that has a suggestion. So that can save you a ton of time. Like I said, I just clicked that button and it's already pushed 1,690 deprecated descriptions over to my replacements. It's designated that many replacements for me. And if we look over here at no replacements, and again, pretty straightforward, no replacements, there has been no replacement designated for any of these terms. Well, I only have 4 left. Once we get this piece loaded, we can take a look. So if we break it down, IMO's replaced 620 or so. After accepting all the suggested replacements, another 1,690. So that's how many have been replaced. I'm only left with these 4 that I really need to dig in and review. And since there are no suggestions, you will have to actually search, find your suitable replacement, and designate. So by no means, you do not have to replace every single deprecated description. You obviously push it as a best practice to do so to avoid any downstream effects in your Epic system. But you can do this to whatever you're comfortable with. Whenever you do come to a point where you're comfortable with how your release is going to look, with all these replacements complete, all you have to do is click this build custom release files, and it's just going to do just that. As I mentioned, it's going to feather in all those replacements into a custom IMO release package. So if I click this, it's going to kick off an operation that's going to build that custom package for you. It usually takes, at least 10 minutes. It is a big operation. But after a certain amount of time, you'll jump over to the download section. This is where we'll see a My Custom Release Files section. So this is where you'll see your custom release package show up. You'll see the date generated, who generated it, the version. At this point, if you want to just download that entire package from this view right here, just select the checkbox, click Download Selected, and take that release and do what you need to with it. If for whatever reason you only need pieces of a release, we have it broken down into the 3 zip files that make up an entire release. You can just download the individual zip file at this point as well. All right, so a few more things I do want to cover here, and it wasn't in the environment that I'm in, but I do definitely want to point out. So we mentioned the SNOMED file earlier, and downloading that and using that as part of the full import process is very important, making sure that you have the correct SNOMED file that corresponds to whatever release that you're importing. So what this feature will be available in Studio for you is when you expand here, you saw in the other environment that I was in, it listed out, it pointed out, different, just different pieces of metadata, different code set versions that corresponded to the release that I was preparing to take or download. What you will actually be available to you in Studio is for this SNOMED file. Not only does it point out the version for whatever release you're about to download, you can just download it straight from this view right here. So it's just clicking download. Not only do you have your IMO package, but you also have your SNOMED file, just all in one view. You don't have to go searching for the proper SNOMED file because the versions aren't always going to line up with the most current for whatever release you're taking. So another big value add right here in IMO Studio for you. Okay. The last couple of things I want to cover here, I believe. We go back to, in the compare releases section, we go back to the resource center here. I do want to push, especially for folks that have previously been using Release Manager or Content Management Portal. There is another document I definitely suggest you take a look at. It's just going to compare what the old Release Manager Content Management Portal looked like to what the new Studio version of Compare Releases is. It's just going to give you some straight up user interface changes, labels, but probably the most important part here are kind of these other notes that you'll need to know as you kind of start using Compare Releases rather than the old version. So that piece, the other piece from the Resource Center is I want to hear your feedback. I want to hear from you. You love it, you hate it, what don't you like, what do you like, what would make it better? Feedback is a gift, so please shower me with gifts is all I'm asking. So you just click through here, you have your form, you fill it out, you submit, and it's easy as that. Right. So with that, I think that's all I have prepared to share with you, all the great functionality within Compare Releases. So I will push it back over to Jory.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Justin and Josephine. All right, so at this time, we'll be kicking off our live Q&A. So if you had any questions coming into this or this conversation spurred some questions, type them in. Please excuse any brief silence while our team looks at your questions. We do have a few that came in already, so I'm going to go ahead and start that. Will I still get notifications when new releases are available in IMO Studio?
I can answer that. Yes, absolutely. If you are getting notifications today from IMO when releases are available to download, you will still be getting them. We now will just always be providing you the IMO Studio link in that notification so that you know exactly where to go to get the release. And if you want to now be added as someone to receive our release notifications, or you have team members that should also get those notifications, reach out to customer support and we'll give you that role.
Great. Is there a limit on how many logins you get in IMO Studio?
Per organization, no. There is not a limit. You can have as many team members as you need with IMO Studio logins and permissions to download.
Okay, a question came in. Should we use IMO Studio for the upcoming regulatory release instead of Release Manager?
Absolutely. Yes. We highly, highly recommend using IMO Studio for the upcoming regulatory release instead of Release Manager.
Okay. Will SNOMED be available to download?
Yes, both SNOMED International and SNOMED US will be available to download with the IMO release.
Great. Sorry, I'm just reading through a few of these. On the compare release you showed, on any of the subsets, is there a way to export a file so you could send to one of your clinical informatics team members for review? You want me to read it again?
Yeah, Justin, are you able to answer that one?
Yeah, could you read that again?
On the compare release you showed, any of those subsets, is there a way to export a file so they could send to one of their clinical informaticist team members for review?
Not currently, but that is a big feature request, and we actually have it on the roadmap. We are hoping to get that out to users by the end of the year. So unfortunately, we might not have it in time for this release period, regulatory release period, but that's something we definitely want to add.
Okay, do you have any documentation I can share with other team members on how to get started? If you look in your chat, I did provide some resources, and we'll also include that in the follow-up email.
And I do see, sorry.
Oh, Blake, you're on mute. Still on.
Sorry, we're 1 second.
Okay, will the IMO files only be released through IMO Studio, or will we be able to download them as we usually do?
Please download them through IMO Studio. That's going to be the new place to download all content going forward. So please log into the IMO Studio to download those files.
And why did IMO make the decision to use the June 2023 rather than July 2023? Was there an issue with the July content?
No, so this is part of SNOMED International moving to monthly releases, and this was the release that we were able to, this release of SNOMED was what we were able to process more effectively for this release of IMO content. There was not an issue with the July content, and this is just more of a process related item on the IMO site. So June 2023 is the version to consume for this release.
Cool. All right, we have one more question. So the EPIC checklist associated with the IMO regulatory import specifies that there should be a snapshot folder with additional subfolders in it. This is for SNOMED. I don't see that breakdown when I download the SNOMED content. If this
Yeah.
is too technical, we can also follow up with this person after, by the way.
Yeah, Roger, I will need to follow up with you directly following the webinar. Let me just take a quick look at the format of the files and ensure that everything looks good on our side. We did test the format with EPIC and they confirmed that everything looks good. So it may just be in terms of the view that we're presenting it. So I'll get back to you once I have an answer for that.
Okay. All right, it looks like that is it. So thank you guys for going and joining our webinar today. We hope you found that useful. If you have any questions related to IMO Studio, please email customer support@imohealth.com. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.